getting nervous. I haven't done this in over a year. What if I don't remember how to read the book correctly? What if I don't remember how to do my little silly zooms and my silly funny ha-has? And I have not done a class guide since the Champion Remastered. What if I don't remember how to do it right? Howdy! My name is Nonat, and have you ever wanted to play a combat-focused bard who, instead of being a spellcaster, is entirely martial-focused and gives their buffs by telling your allies to get their butts in gear? Well, do I have great news for you. The Envoy class of the newly released Starfinder 2nd Edition is exactly that. Slap together a rogue, a bard, and a little bit of sci-fi, and you've got such a unique class. Also a class that I think perfectly demonstrates just how cross-compatible Pathfinder and Starfinder truly are, because nothing in the base class of the Envoy relies on futuristic cybertech. All the bonuses they get make just as much sense if you read them from the perspective of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. It seriously blows my mind just how well Paizo has written these games to mesh together. And I know some people have been getting a little bit upset at me saying that Starfinder counts as an expansion for Pathfinder, which is a weird thing to get upset over, but someone did leave a comment that I think was a really good point, and that is that while they are cross-compatible, they are not necessarily cross-balanced. And while that is definitely a true fact, I also don't think it's nearly as big of a deal as people think it is. Remember, the math of Pathfinder is so incredibly tight. All the same rules apply. You only get one item bonus, one status bonus, one circumstance bonus. It's all the same stuff. Sure, there may be some mechanical advantages that something from Starfinder might get in certain situations that don't really exist in Pathfinder, but mathematically, you're not going to be getting any crazy advantages in Starfinder. So let's take a look at the Envoy. And again, just almost as an experience, a practice to see how well these games overlap, think of everything I'm about to tell you about the Envoy from the perspective of Pathfinder 2e, because I'll be honest, that's how I am doing it. The Envoy is a master manipulator and is actually a charisma-based martial class. We don't have too many of those, only a certain type of rogue and I think the thaumaturge? 8 hit points per level, trained in perception and fortitude, and expert in both reflex and will saves. They are trained in either diplomacy, deception, or intimidation, your choice, another skill based on their subclass, and then 6+ intelligence modifier in bonus skills. You can already see a lot of the Pathfinder rogue in the Envoy just from the skill monkey nature of it all. Trained in simple weapons, martial weapons, and light armor. This is a very classic, squishy martial class right from the proficiencies. You know exactly what you're getting into. I'm already loving this. So, after your 4 free ability boosts and your initial proficiencies from the class itself, what does the Envoy get at level 1? Well, they get a completely unique mechanic known as directives. Directives are a simple action that provides a benefit typically to you and your allies, and they always have an optional lead by example benefit. Typically, directives will only cost 1 action, but if you spend 2 actions, you can lead by example and gain a bonus benefit on top of or an improved version of the normal benefit of the directive. These directives also have the auditory or visual trait, one of the two based on how you choose to flavor your directives. If you have colored flags you hold up based on what move you want your allies to do, that would be visual, whereas if you're just shouting commands, that would be auditory. The best way to learn how these work is to look at the directive that every single Envoy gets right at level 1. Get 'em! For 1 action, select an enemy within 60 feet. You and all of your allies get a +1 status bonus to attack rolls against that target until the start of your next turn. Plain and simple. This is basically Courageous Anthem, but specifically for 1 target. But what makes this really interesting compared to Courageous Anthem is that the distance is only important for the enemy target. If you have an ally 300 feet away, but they can hear you through an intercom or they can see that red get 'em flag you lift up, well, guess what? They still get the benefit to the attack roll against the target you specified. This is an amazing combo with long-range characters, and it finally gives a use for a lot of those abilities that increase your firing range as long as you are within range of the Envoy themselves to see or hear the command. But that's just the one action version. If you spend 2 actions on Get 'em and lead by example, not only do you grant yourself and your allies that bonus to attack rolls, but you also make a strike against the target you chose, and if you hit, you deal bonus damage equal to your charisma modifier. Plus, all of your allies deal bonus damage to the target for the same duration as the effect, starting at +1 damage and scaling at +1 more damage every few levels. The nice thing about this is that even if your strike misses, your allies still get that damage bonus. This is great. You use 2 actions to say Get 'em, you attack, you might deal +3, +4 damage from your charisma modifier, and everybody else, let's say 3 allies hit before your next turn, that's just 3 more damage at level 1 that wouldn't have been dealt otherwise. This is going to matter a little bit less at higher levels. You know, at level 10, 3 bonus damage on attacks isn't amazing, but it's also not nothing. Even at level 10, if you're a 4-person party and all 3 of your allies each hit once, that's 9 bonus damage. Even at level 10, you're not turning down 9 damage. Also at level 1, Envoys get their leadership style. This is their subclass, how you choose to lead. This subclass gives you 3 different benefits: a skill proficiency, a perk unique to that subclass, and of course, a unique directive that can only be issued by envoys of that subclass. So, starting off with the first leadership style, leading from the front, you are now a frontline class, and because of that, you are trained in athletics, and you also get medium armor proficiency equivalent to your light armor proficiency. Anytime your light armor prof goes up, you gain medium armor increase as well, meaning right from level 1 you can wear medium armor, which means you don't need to put as many points into dexterity. Whether you want to put more points into constitution to take more hits, or maybe go melee and put points into strength instead of dex, this is a really cool way to build a different style of envoy rather than dexterity charisma, which is obviously the default you would probably aim for. Their directive is into position. For 1 action, you pick an enemy on the field. All allies currently adjacent to that target can spend their reaction to take a step action. However, all allies within 30 feet of you but not adjacent to that target can spend their reaction to stride. However, they must end that stride closer to the target. So if you have something like a barbarian who might not be able to make it to, I don't know why I'm using barbarian as an example, we're talking about Starfinder. It's so natural with the syntax. If you have an ally who wants to be in melee, but they are not currently in melee, say they have something like a reactive strike, then you can use into position as long as they're close enough to you to get them up to the target. And if you have something squishy like a witch warper who currently has a giant monster on top of them, well, you can use into position to let them step away without risking that reactive strike. And if you use 2 actions to lead by example, you can also get the target enemy's attention, giving them a -1 circumstance penalty to attack anybody but you. This is an actual tank frontliner envoy build. You stack this up with something like a shield or anything that can increase armor class, and you make everybody else harder to hit and make sure they are focusing on you. Phenomenal stuff. I think the 1 action is a little bit lackluster, but the 2 action more than makes up for it. Oh, and also it comes with a strike. I didn't even realize that because it just says strike the target. Yeah, you are not only inflicting this penalty, no saving throw, by the way, and you don't have to hit with this strike, but 2 actions, everybody gets to move a little bit, you give them a penalty, and you get a strike alongside that, meaning for 3 actions on the envoy's turn, 1 action move into melee, 2 actions maybe pull people into melee with you or give them an opportunity to step away, and inflict a penalty, and strike. This is a I punched you, I'm so sorry. It's a great subclass. Alternatively, the complete opposite of Frontline, you can take the From the Shadows leadership style, which gives you trained in stealth. Their perk is just the Assurance skill feat for stealth, which is not that great, and they get the directive Coordinated Ambush. I'll be honest, this is insane. For 1 action, you pick an enemy within 60 feet and an ally within 60 feet. They don't need to be within 60 feet of each other, so you can have someone 60 feet that way and an enemy 60 feet that way. As long as the ally is hidden, undetected, or unnoticed, then they treat the target enemy as off guard until the end of their turn, even when they break their stealth. This is important. This is effectively giving them a +2 to hit that target for their entire turn, as long as they were already hidden. Now keep in mind, they do need to already be hidden by the start of their turn, so you can't give them this benefit, then they hide, then they attack. That does not work. They need to hide at the end of their turn so you can give them the order to ambush. And leading by example, by spending 2 actions, you can hide, or if you're already hidden, you can sneak. And then, as a reaction, when your designated ally attacks the designated enemy, you can spend your reaction to also attack that enemy. This is an incredible way to get around multiple attack penalty. The From the Shadows Envoy can attack, lead by example, hide, let the ally attack at +2, and then because you're hidden, when you attack, they're also off guard. And just to clarify, when I say your ally is attacking at +2, I'm talking about the enemy's armor class being -2. So it's a net +2 to their odds, not an actual +2 to the attack roll. Are you confused yet? I'm really good at my job. This is insane. If you combine this with a sniper and you both have snipers and you're within 60 feet of the enemy, you can just bang bang insanely. As the Envoy, you can really manipulate delaying your turn to be at specific points in initiative to make the most out of this. If you can make sure your sniper goes immediately after you, you can get yourselves into a great vantage point? I don't know what word I'm looking for. They're already hidden, your turn starts, lead by example and hide, they shoot, and as a reaction you shoot and you explode a single enemy, and you can do that every single round. Absolute beautiful synergy. And that's sort of the name of the game with the Envoy so far, right? Is they are the epitome of what I love about Pathfinder 2e. They don't do much on their own. An Envoy by themselves is much weaker than most other classes, even Pathfinder classes. I don't know why I say even, they're balanced very similarly. The Envoy does not function alone. Their entire gimmick is making their allies stronger, having their allies take specific courses of action, and giving them bonuses because of it, and I love that. A lot of people talk about Pathfinder classes in a vacuum, solo, and they get mad because X class is stronger than Y class. Well, guess what? No singular class's core ability matters because it's about what you can do together, and the Envoy is a perfect example of that. When I first read the guns blazing leadership style, I was not impressed. You become trained in acrobatics and you get incredible initiative, which isn't bad, it's just not super exciting. +2 to initiative, wahoo. And then I read Ready Arms, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. For one action, you and all allies within 30 feet can spend an interact action to draw a weapon, change your hand's grip on a weapon, or draw a new weapon, like swap weapons. And then I read Led by Example, and it was like a light bulb going off in my head. If you use 2 actions, you can strike, area fire, or auto fire with a weapon you drew or swapped to. If your strike hits or if a target failed its save against your area fire or auto fire, one ally can make a strike against the target as a reaction. Even that's like, okay, cool, you know, you're going to attack, then your ally gets to attack as a reaction. That's good. There's a lot of multiple attack penalty getting around on the Envoy because it's having you or your allies attack when it's not their turn, which ignores multiple attack penalty. That's fantastic. But then I realized, if you have a guns blazing Envoy, and you can afford it, like with money, you can ignore reload. Have all of your allies stick within 30 feet of you, and every turn, nobody's reloading their weapon. They're just swapping it with a new weapon, and you can just keep unloading and changing weapons without worrying about the action economy. Sure, it's going to spend everybody's reaction to swap weapons, and if they spend their reaction swapping weapons, then they can't spend their reaction to fire with the lead by example benefit, but this is just a stupid idea, and I love it. You are literally a firing squad. Does anybody ever seen Jake of the 99 Dragons? Has anyone ever seen how he shoots? And then instead of reloading, he throws his pistols and draws 2 new ones. That's your entire team with the guns blazing Envoy. I do have a problem with this in that you need to build around guns blazing. I guess you don't need to build around it, but you need to spend around it. If you have a character who likes a certain type of weapon, you will greatly benefit from them having multiple of that same weapon rather than having to keep reloading and spending their own actions. It's so dumb, and I love it. I feel like that sums up Starfinder. It's so dumb, and I love it. Look at this Barathu in a taxi. It's so dumb, and I love it. The In the Spotlight leadership style is fascinating. It does feel a little bit weaker than the other options, but it is undeniably super flavorful. You become trained in performance and gain the impressive performance as a bonus feat, which basically means you can roll performance instead of diplomacy when talking to people. And you get the Dance Partner directive, which is okay. For one action, you select an ally within 10 feet of you. You step or stride, and then they can spend their reaction to step or stride. That's it. Additionally, if they chose to spend their reaction to follow you, they must end the same distance away from you they were, or closer. If you started 10 feet apart, you have to end either 10 feet apart or 5 feet apart. And the lead by example is decent. You're going to want to use this with a melee ally, because if you spend 2 actions and lead by example, then you and your selected ally, as long as you are both threatening the same enemy, which basically means you are in melee and threatening or within your weapon's reach, you are considered flanking them regardless of your position, as long as you are both within melee reach of that target. And that's not bad. That's like giving you and your ally that net +2 to hit on your attack rolls, and it doesn't go away, so it's decent. And then the last part, I feel like it could have been so much better. Your ally becomes concealed against ranged attacks within 10 feet of them until the start of your next turn, or until they move, which is so specific. If it was just concealed against ranged attacks because you're dancing and moving and so hard to predict, I think that would have been fine. But ranged attacks within 10 feet, I'm guessing they're a lot more common in Starfinder than they are in Pathfinder, because most people are using ranged weapons in Starfinder. But even then, it's so specific. And if they move, it's over. At the end of the day, this is a really complicated gang up from Rogue. I think the thing that this needs to make it more useful is because it is only allowing one ally to move and they have to move with you, I say don't make it spend their reaction. If it doesn't spend the ally's reaction, I think this is fine, but the fact that they have to spend their reaction just to move with you, it doesn't feel great. Flavorful, absolutely. I love it. I just don't know why it spends the reaction. I don't know why it's only ranged strikes within 10 feet. Now we're getting into a subclass that is very specifically for Starfinder, not Pathfinder. There will be aspects like this, because the Infosphere Director subclass is not going to be that useful in Pathfinder when the Infosphere doesn't exist, especially because it gives you trained in computers skill, which I don't think is going to come up super often on Galarian. They do also get the Digital Diversion skill feat as a bonus feat, which lets you roll computers instead of deception to create a diversion, as long as there is a hackable object nearby. But I think you take this leadership style specifically for the directive Digital Assessment. For one action, you choose a creature within 100 feet and recall knowledge on it. And in addition to the normal benefits of your recall knowledge, you also get to note a resistance or immunity the creature has. Obviously, this is only on success or critical success, but it's cool. At my table, we always play that when you succeed, you can ask for one piece of information, like a weakness, an immunity, the lowest save, etc. This would work so well in that when you succeed, now you get whatever you ask for, plus a resistance or immunity. That's a direct upgrade to the action, which I'm always a fan of. And if you spend 2 actions to lead by example, you and all of your allies gain +1 circumstance bonus to your armor class against attacks from that creature. But the really fun part is that if the target has the tech trait, it rolls Fortitude against your class DC, and if it fails, it becomes Glitching 1, which is such a fun condition. I can't remember exactly what it does. I read it a couple of weeks ago, but it's on screen right now. Pause the video if you want to read it. It's a really fun new condition. But just like a lot of recall knowledge abilities, once you use this on a creature once, they are immune for 1 hour. But let me tell you, they saved the best for last. Did you expect them to make this Charisma Martial class a healing support character? Trained in medicine, battle medicine as a bonus feat at level 1, which is already insane. But keep on keeping on is crazy. For one action, you select an ally within 30 feet, and until the start of your next turn, they increase all healing they receive by your charisma modifier. Plus half your level, so not that much early on, but it's gonna keep going up, 4, 5, 6 extra hit points, but that's not the big deal here. No, leading by example. You battle medicine them as part of this directive. and they're only immune to your battle medicine for 10 minutes. There's a few things to keep in mind here. The first is that 10 minutes instead of 24 hours. You can battle medicine every party member pretty much every single combat. You are now so good at healing. 2d8 early on plus your charisma modifier and half your level, that's fantastic. Compare that to a level 1 cleric's heal spell, 2d8 plus 8 compared to 2d8 plus 5. That's not bad. But also, read carefully. Select an ally within 30 feet. If you used 2 actions, you battle medicine the target. You don't have to be adjacent to battle medicine them this way. At least that's how I'm reading this. It is entirely possible that I am misreading this and misunderstanding the rules as written, but the way that reads to me is that this allows you to battle medicine at 30 feet with 4 or 5 bonus hit points restored and only 10-minute immunity. I think that's phenomenal. You have just turned into a cleric who, instead of having a bunch of heal slots per day, you get 1 heal slot per ally per combat. I love this. I want to play a Desperate Times Envoy so freaking bad. So, going into class features, you got a lot of simple stuff here. They're a martial class, so they do get a feat at level 1, skill feats at 2nd level, skill increases at 2nd level, but then they get adaptive talent at level 3. This is actually similar to the fighter's combat training, where they can get a different fighter feat every single day, except specifically for skill feats. At the beginning of the day, you can get a skill feat for one skill you are trained in, and each daily preparations you can swap it for a different skill feat you qualify for. And yes, it does say you can specifically use this temporary skill feat to give you access to certain options temporarily. For example, temporarily learning multilingual to speak more languages that you will not be able to speak the next day. The exception for this is you cannot use them as prerequisites for other skill feats that require them. Now, what you can do is once you are level 9 and 15, you can prepare 1 more skill feat this way. So at level 15, you get 3 unique skill feats that are all interchangeable every daily preparation. And these feats can be prerequisites for other feats taken through adaptive talent. I can't think of any because Pathfinder 2 is not a super skill tree feat tree-based system, but if there is a skill feat that requires 2 other skill feats as prerequisite, then your 3rd level can be the first one, your 9th level can be the second one, and your 15th level skill feat can have both of those prerequisites satisfied, even if they're only satisfied through adaptive talent. Also at level 3 is General Feats, and then Wise to the Game, which is phenomenal. +1 status bonus to your Perception DC against fainting, lying, and creatures trying to create a diversion, as well as a +1 status bonus to your Will saves against emotion effects. Just a passive +1 to a bunch of stuff. A little bit hard to keep track of, which I'm not a huge fan of, but really good. Level 5, though, is so crazy. Sure, you get Ancestry feats, but more importantly, you get Improvised Mastery. I've never seen anything like this in Pathfinder before. Obviously, this is Starfinder, but that's what I'm loving, is Starfinder is giving us things that don't function within the assumed bounds of Pathfinder. As a free action, once per day, if you're about to roll a skill check and you are not master proficient in that skill, you are for that roll. It doesn't matter if you're expert, trained, even untrained. If you're about to roll Arcana and you've never read a book in your life, well, for that roll, you are master proficiency. You're level 5, you could give yourself just a flat +11 to 1 check per day. That's so cool. I love it. And I love how it's just described as either by luck or by instinct. Like, they don't need to explain it. You just get lucky sometimes. And this is such a cool representation of luck. Also, level 5 is expert proficiency in perception, as well as expert proficiency in simple and martial weapons, plus critical specialization, but only when attacking the target of Get 'em specifically. So a little bit limiting there. Level 7 is Expert in Fortitude saves, as well as Leader's Confidence, which gives you a new directive. Steel Yourselves. For one action, you grant all allies within 60 feet a unique action they can take on their next turn. If they spend one action with the Concentrate trait, they gain temporary hit points equal to your Charisma modifier plus half your level. So you get about 7 temporary hit points. It's a little rough that everybody has to spend one action for this, but at the beginning of combat, if you're in a good advantageous position, you can spend an action pretty easily while waiting for enemies maybe to get a little bit closer and prep yourself. These temporary hit points last for 1 minute, which means they don't go away for a while, so that's pretty damn good. And if you spend 2 actions, then you and any allies who do brace themselves gain a +1 status bonus to saving throws against damaging effects for 1 minute. This is pretty good. Again, this is a nice setup at the start of combat. You're giving everybody a really good saving throw bump. I think that's fantastic. I don't really know why it has a once per hour cooldown. It's also worded a little bit weirdly. Like, it's implied that allies can only brace for impact on their next turn following the use of Steel Yourselves, but it doesn't say that. All it says, word for word, you encourage your allies to brace for impact or otherwise prepare for incoming damage. Allies within 60 feet who can sense you can spend one action on their turn to brace for impact. This action has the Concentrate trait. Creatures that brace for impact gain temporary hit points equal to your modifier plus half your level for 1 minute. The syntax here is actually kind of weird. It should say, until the start of your next turn, allies within 60 feet who can sense you. But the way this is written, technically, sorry, I've been doing this for 5 years. The syntax is something that really irks the weird part of my brain. But rules as written, Steel Yourselves, aside from the lead by example, does nothing. The one action Steel Yourselves technically doesn't do anything the way it's written. I'm just being an absolute nerd here, but it's my show. I get to do what I want. It's probably going to be a simple errata of just adding until the start of your next turn, but yeah, that's so weird. Level 7 is also weapon specialization, which works exactly how it does in Pathfinder. 2 bonus damage if you're expert with a weapon, 3 if you're master, 4 if you're legendary. Level 9 increases your class DC to expert, which is always nice, and hidden agenda is crazy. Enemies can no longer critically succeed to gather information from you or recall knowledge on you, and you cannot critically fail a saving throw against an effect that would read or reveal your thoughts or emotions. Critical successes against you become normal successes. Your critical failures become normal failures. This is wild. It's super cool. What this also technically means is if there's any spells out there that like read your thoughts and deal damage and you crit fail, that counts for this. That bumps it just up to a normal failure instead of a crit failure. It's not as good as, when you become master or legendary in a saving throw and gain immunity to crits, to auto crit succeed or immune to crit fails, but it's still really cool, and it plays into the flavor of the Envoy being this ultimate espionage agent who knows what they're about and knows how to keep people from finding out what they're about. Super cool. Love it. Level 11 is Master Proficiency in Perception, Master Proficiency in Will Saves, which turns all normal successes into critical successes, and Savvy Improviser. Not only can you use Master Improviser twice per day, but also when you roll a nat 1 on Diplomacy or Deception, it doesn't reduce your success level. Is this going to matter super often? Not necessarily, but if you're just talking to a civilian and you roll a nat 1 on Deception, chances are you're at least normal succeeding, maybe failing, but not critically failing, which is a huge deal. It's only once per day, but it's still really cool to have something baked into your class that says, hey, the first time you per day, no you didn't. Level 13 gives Expert in Light Armor, Master in Weaponry, but then Tactician. For some context before I get into this, I'm reviewing these as I read them, which means I have not read the Envoy feats yet. It's very possible that this has some great synergy with a lot of different Envoy feats. But by default, at the end of each of your turns, you gain 1 additional reaction, which you can use before the beginning of your next turn for any Envoy reaction. Only 2 subclasses of Envoy get a reaction by default, and that's the Ambusher and the Guns Blazing. Nothing else gets a reaction by default, so it's just weird to see that the base class gets a bonus reaction baked in that not all Envoys will even be able to use. This is something you'd usually see on a fighter or a champion or a swashbuckler, in Pathfinder at least, so I'll be curious to see if there's a lot of feats that grant Envoy reactions, because it talks about them like they're this very common integral part of the class, but we haven't seen many yet. Level 15 is Greater Weapon Specialization, doubling the damage bonus from that. Legendary Improvisation, which, you guessed it, takes your Master Improvisation and then makes it Legendary Proficiency instead, even if you're untrained, which is so cool, because you can think of that as a plus 23 to an untrained skill check. And then Master and Reflex saves, turning all Reflex save successes into critical successes. Greater Resolve, you are legendary in will saves. When you crit fail a will save, you only normal fail instead, and you take half damage on a failed will save against a damaging effect. Level 17 also gives legendary Perception proficiency, and then Inscrutable, which is another upgrade to the Hidden Agenda feature. If you get critically succeeded on by someone trying to gather information or recall knowledge, they fail instead. If you critically fail a saving throw against an attempt to read your mind, you succeed instead. That's crazy. I don't know if I've ever read any feature anywhere in these systems that changes the result of a saving throw by 2 stages. Actually insane. I love it. Level 19 is Master Proficiency in Light Armor, and then Silver Tongue, which is pretty good. As a free action, once per day per skill, you can re-roll a check and take the better result. This can be done on Deception, Diplomacy, Intimidation, and the skill of your subclass. That's not bad. That's 4 rerolls a day, and assuming that these rolls might be part of your combat based on certain feats or skill actions, I think that's a pretty good level 19 feature. Fortune effects are very rare in Pathfinder, usually saved for just hero points or very specific ancestries and classes, and having this just baked in at level 19 to get back on top of that, like, oh, you don't fail these things. Talking to people, that's what you do. I don't care if you rolled a nat 1, it doesn't count as a nat 1. Oh, you rolled a 2? Re-roll it, now it's 12. Oh, I haven't said this in like over a year. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this with the class feats. The Envoy is a martial class, which means they start getting feats right at level 1, starting with Go to Ground, a new directive. Because of course there's going to be a bunch of optional directives you can take from feats. For one action, you and all allies within 60 feet can count any lesser cover, which is a +1 to armor class, as normal cover, which is a +2 to armor class. And if you lead by example, then you get to take cover, and all allies can spend their reaction to take cover. This is fantastic. Everybody else gets to do what they want on their turn. Let's say they're ending their turn behind cover, but they spend their action striking. Cool, you can go to ground, and everybody just ducks down and gets that +2 to armor class. Phenomenal. And as a reminder, if you take cover next to standard cover, it becomes greater cover. So already, if everybody is behind lesser cover, one action Go to Ground just gives everybody another +1 to armor class. When you lead by example, and if everyone uses their reaction, that all elevates to a +4 to armor class against ranged strikes. And in a game system like Starfinder, where 90% of people are using guns, I'd say that's pretty damn good. Pardon Me is super simple and really good for an Envoy that doesn't want to put too many points into dexterity. You can tumble through using Deception against Will DC instead of Acrobatics against Reflex. Not only is this great because you might have a higher Charisma than you will a Dexterity, but also if someone has a garbage Will save but a really high Reflex, this still lets you tumble through safely. You don't have options. Even if you have a high Dexterity, this is still a good option. Also, when you move through someone's space like this using Pardon Me, they become suppressed until the end of their next turn, which gives a -1 to all ranged attack rolls. Let's find out if I remembered that correctly. Oh, and a -10-foot status penalty to all their speeds. That's great. That's insane. Wait, you can just tumble through to give them -1 to attack rolls and a speed penalty? God, I love Starfinder. Quip. As a reaction, if your ally strikes a creature, you can demoralize them. Plain and simple. That's really good. Has to be within 30 feet, but yeah. It doesn't even matter if the ally's in melee. The ally could be 200 feet that way. If the enemy was damaged by your ally's strike, you can just demoralize as a reaction. Fantastic. Size Up. This is basically pursuing a lead on Investigator. You spend 1 minute observing someone, 10 minutes doing research on the Infosphere, or 1 hour socializing and gathering information, and that creature becomes your asset. You can get all of the benefits of the 2-action Get 'em directive by spending 1 action instead. You also get +1 to diplomacy, deception, intimidation, and perception against that target for as long as they are your asset, as well as a +1 circumstance bonus to recall knowledge about them. This is great. This is fantastic for a roleplay espionage heavy campaign. Additionally, there's no limit on how many directives you can use per turn, so by getting the 2-action benefits on a 1-action Get 'em, you can now use Get 'em and a 2-action other directive on the same turn, which is great. Just keep in mind that you have to be using Get 'em on your asset specifically. Take 'em alive, another directive that for 1 action, you and all of your allies' weapons become non-lethal until the start of your next turn. That's already phenomenal. This even applies to spells as long as they don't have the void or death traits, because, disintegrate can't be non-lethal. If you 2-action lead by example, you also get to make a strike against the designated creature, which of course becomes non-lethal, and on a success, you add your charisma modifier to your damage. And if you crit them, then on top of doubling all the damage you just did, one ally within 30 feet can spend their reaction to also strike the target non-lethally. This is fantastic. 2 actions to potentially attack and give an ally a free attack. The Envoy is so freaking cool, y'all. Navi's favorite feat, Watch Out. And it's also insanely powerful. As a reaction, if a creature targets an ally within 60 feet of you and you can see them both, you can give the ally +2 armor class. That's crazy. Swashbuckler's flashy dodge, the rogue's nimble dodge. This is that, but you can use it on any ally. The only thing is you can't use it on yourself. That's crazy. This one feat alone makes it worth getting that class feature that gives a bonus reaction every turn. Imagine being able to do this twice per turn. That's insane. Level 2, we have Acquire Asset, which is phenomenal. For 1 action, you make a strike against a creature that is not your asset. If you hit them, they become your asset, which means you can acquire asset, hit them, that's 1 action, get them for 1 action, which gives you all the benefits of a 2-action get them, and then maybe 1 action, another directive, all on the same turn. That's cracked. And if you critically succeed, you get a free recall knowledge on them, which, remember, you get a +1 circumstance bonus to because they're now your asset. This class is cool. Change of plans is okay. As a reaction, if your current target of Get 'em is dropped to 0 hit points, you can immediately use Get 'em on a new target. However, it only counts as a 1-action Get 'em. You don't get the lead by example benefits, even if you were previously leading by example. Alternatively, Don't You Die on Me is insane. For 1 action, target an adjacent ally with the dying condition. Reduce their dying condition by 1, and if it reduces them to dying 0, they become unconscious and don't gain the wounded condition. That's crazy. That's so good. Anything that can skirt around the wounded condition in Pathfinder 2e, and I can only think of 2 things, this and the surgeon archetype. That's wild. The only balancing thing here is that they're immune to it for 1 hour, and if you play in games the way we do, dying value is not public knowledge, and I think it's just really fun to do that way. We always do private messages since we play online to know, I'll let them know what their dying value is, but their allies don't know, so it's sort of this mystery game of, oh, how stable is my ally? Do I go for the kill, or do I go for the stabilize? I have to choose. So this is just really, really cool. Being able to reduce dying value just for 1 action. No medicine check, nothing. Just, hey, you're a little more stable. I love you. Mwah. Kisses. Get In There is pretty good. For 1 action until the start of your next turn, you and all allies gain a 5-foot status bonus to their speed, and this increases by an additional 5 feet at level 7, 12, and 17. So at level 17, plus 20-foot speed to you and all allies, fantastic. And if you lead by example, you get to step or stride, and then all allies within 100 feet have the option of spending their reaction to step or stride only up to half their speed. I don't really know why the lead by example is only half their speed. They're spending their reaction. I feel like spending that for a full stride is perfectly fine for a level 2 class feat, but maybe I'm undervaluing trading a reaction for a stride? I don't know. I guess positioning is a lot more important in Starfinder, so maybe strides have a higher weight than in Pathfinder. Search high and low. Until the start of your next turn, you and all allies within 100 feet gain a +2 status bonus to perception checks to seek specifically. And this increases at levels 7, 12, and 17 to +3, 4, and +5. 5. That's wild. +5 to anything in this game is crazy. And lead by example for 2 actions. Shocker, shocker. You get to seek, and any ally within 100 feet can spend their reaction to seek. This is great. If you've got hidden enemies, you know someone's there, but they're still, undetected or don't know exactly where they are, this is fantastic for pointing them out. I just had a session the other day in Pathfinder where something like this would have been very useful. Instead, a very important NPC got shot. Sorry, Gren. Diverse schemes at level 4. You do need to have taken size up at level 1, but now you can have a number of assets equal to your charisma modifier. It's interesting that there's an entire asset build of Envoy here. You have acquire asset, then you can keep hitting different targets and making them your assets, and then one action getaming them for your allies. That's really fun. I like that a lot. Oh, twice your charisma modifier. That's like more than I said. Like almost exactly twice as many. What is... Sorry, I'm still just reading this. Not in the face at level 4, trained in deception. As a reaction, a creature targets you with a melee attack. Quote, you wave your arms to shield your face from harm and cower, acting meek and pitiful. That is how I fight. You attempt a deception check against the creature's will DC, and there's all pretty good stuff. If you critically fail, then nothing happens. Even if you normal fail, the attacker gets a -1 circumstance penalty against their current attack. If you succeed, they get a -1 circumstance penalty until the start of their next turn, and if you crit succeed, it's -2 to attack and damage rolls until the start of its next turn. That's fun. I think kobolds have something similar to this, like grovel. It's fun. I love abilities that are reactions that are just, wait, don't hit me. That's a lot of fun. I don't know if it fits the Envoy. I guess it's deception, so it definitely fits a style of Envoy. I guess if you wanted to play the prude, pretentious, business elite asshole, oh, don't strike me there, my face is my moneymaker, could be a lot of fun. Influence is okay, but I'm not a big fan of the trigger. It's a reaction for when you are about to roll diplomacy, intimidation, or deception. It just gives you advantage. You just roll twice, take the higher number. Would it be overpowered if this just let you do it after you roll, like a hero point? For a level 4 feat once per day on one of 3 specific skills, I think I'd allow this after the roll. I don't know why it's only before. It's still a cool feat. I like it. Again, it just keeps hammering home. You're an Envoy. You do the talking. You don't mess up. But I don't know. Saw it coming. As a free action, you get a +1 circumstance bonus to your initiative roll, and upon rolling initiative, you can either step, stride, or draw a weapon. Pretty damn good for getting into position early. Dirty Retort. As a reaction, if a creature misses you with a melee strike, they become Clumsy 1 or Enfeebled 1. This is actually crazy. There is no saving throw. There is no skill check. You compare this to like the Dirty Trick skill feat for Thievery. This is insane. Are they attacking you with Dexterity? Clumsy 1. Strength? Enfeebled 1. Nuts. Actually insane. Abilities that just work in Pathfinder are either incredibly negligibly weak or very, very rare. And this is the rare kind. Just have a status. And by the way, it's to the end of its next turn. If they missed you with their first strike, then they're clumsy for the rest of that turn and their entire next turn. That's insane. And there's no cooldown. They're not immune to this. As long as they keep missing you, you refresh that duration. Gross. Envoy reactions are sick. Remember how I was complaining about Envoy reactions? I like Envoy reactions. Distant Feint. Pretty good. As long as you have a ranged weapon out, you can feint from a distance of 100 feet rather than just being in melee, and when you succeed, they're off guard against your ranged attacks as well. Hang in there is just battle medicine, but you talk it at them, and it's temporary hit points instead of normal healing. You choose an ally within 30 feet and attempt a DC 20 diplomacy check. If you're master, you can do DC 30, legendary DC 40. Each of these increases the temporary hit points they gain by 10. On a normal success, they gain temp hit points equal to your level plus charisma mod for 1 minute. I mean, that's pretty good. You're level 6, that's 10 temporary hit points. If you're master and next level, you can give them like 21 temporary hit points for a minute. That's not nothing. On a critical success, it's double their level plus your charisma. It's interesting that it uses their level, not your level. I wonder why they decided to go with that. But assuming your party is all the same level as you, critical success? You know, what, 20 temporary hit points at level 6? That's huge. They are immune for 1 day, unless that's a normal failure, in which case they're only immune for 1 minute, and even a critical failure, they're only immune for 1 hour. I like that if you fail this, it's not just gone for the entire day. I think that's a really good design. Hurry's not bad. It's sort of just lending an action. For 1 action, you pick an ally within 30 feet, they become quickened 1 for 1 round, and they can use that extra action to either step or stride, and then they're immune for 10 minutes. It's fine. I feel like you're better off using some of the different directives that affect all your allies, but it's whatever. I did miss that the extra action can be used to interact, which is fine. You can open a door, I guess. I don't know, I feel like it's still missing that little zhuzh. Cheer Up seems insane. It's a level 8 feat, and you do need to be trained in medicine, but for 1 action, an adjacent ally reduces one of their conditions by 2. Clumsy, enfeebled, frightened, sickened, or stupefied. No medicine check. No saving throw. It's just gone by 2. And what's interesting about this is it doesn't have the additional text that a lot of things usually do in this system, which is if the condition is sourced from a curse or other permanent affliction, it can't be reduced. It doesn't say that. What if they have a curse that makes them clumsy too until it's gone? Well, Cheer Up, rules as written, just reduces it, and it doesn't matter anymore. What? Like, even the mercy feats from the Blessed One archetype are counteract checks. This is just, you're not sick anymore. Cheer up, bub. I want to play an envoy that just, like, slips money into their pockets. Like, you're not sick. Come on. Get back out there, champ. Gonna need you at the football game on Saturday. That's crazy. That's actually crazy. I'm glad they're immune for 1 day, but that's crazy. Confounding Disquisition? This might be one of the weakest feats I've ever read. And this is coming off of the insane powerhouse we just read. For 2 actions, you target a single creature within 30 feet and roll either Diplomacy or Deception against their will DC. On a critical success, they're stunned 1 and stupefied 1 for 1 round? On a success, they're stupefied 1 for just 1 round, and then they're immune for 24 hours. If you fail, it's a -1 to perception checks and will saves. That's pretty okay for 1 round. And then if you critically fail, nothing happens. The only good thing about this feat is that it has an effect if you fail. But 2 actions to target 1 creature to maybe steal an action from them if you crit succeed, and otherwise just stupefied for 1 round, which you can't even repeat? I don't know, this feels really weak. Am I missing something here? Let me know if I am. It's a funny feat. I love that you just give a pointless monologue that's just its only purpose is to confuse and distract, but I don't know. I couldn't even make stupefied 1 for a minute? Look Alive! This is an upgrade to the Watch Out reaction, and instead of giving +2 to armor class, you can actually apply it to someone making a reflex saving throw to give them +2 circumstance bonus to the save instead. Additionally now, if you use Watch Out on an ally and the triggering attack critically misses, or they critically succeed their save against the reflex save, they can stride up to 10 feet as a free action, not as a reaction. That's fantastic. The problem here is I feel like 90% of the time, you want to save Watch Out for when you could turn a hit into a miss or a crit into a hit. You wouldn't really want to spend this turning a miss into a critical miss. I don't really understand the point of that. You know, I'm just now realizing that me and my team and party have all been using Nimble Dodge wrong for 5 years. We've always allowed the reaction after the die roll. I don't know, I like it that way. It feels like it gives the player a little bit more agency when to use it, rather than just spending their reaction before they know how severe the attack is. I get it from a balance standpoint why you're supposed to use it before the attack rolls. You do it on target, not on attack roll. But I don't know, I like the agency of being able to turn something into something else. That does give rules as written this feat a lot more use, the Look Alive, so that if they happen to crit succeed, at least now there's a benefit to it. Damn. Wow, okay, Sidestep is insane. We're right back to really powerful feats. As a reaction, if an attack roll for a strike targeting you fails, then you make it attack a target adjacent to you instead, re-rolling the attack. It doesn't even have to be a melee attack. If somebody shoots you with a sniper rifle and misses your armor class by 1, you can say, and then they re-roll their attack, which could be a nat 20 on their friend, and they blow their friend's head off. That's crazy. That's just a reaction you can do? That's insane. Holy, not even a crit fail, a normal fail. That's nuts. Wow, okay, level 10, cut them deep. If you normal fail a demoralized check, you succeed instead. And if they are currently the target of get 'em, they are not immune to future demoralize. That's you can just permanently frighten a creature. That doesn't spend any resource. Get 'em, demoralize. Get 'em, demoralize. And fails are success unless you roll like a 3. That's insane! Like, I get it, witches and stuff in Pathfinder have, like, spells and cantrips to keep that going and, like, synergy, and I guess this is level 10, a level 10 feat, but still, a one-person infinite frighten loop that can't fail unless you crit fail? That's cracked. I guess the big thing that makes this less useful is that there's a lot more excuses to be fighting constructs in Starfinder. You'll fight a lot more droids and robots that aren't sentient or are mindless and like defense drones and whatnot. So Cut 'em Deep wouldn't be as useful there, but still, that's amazing. I'm glad you have to be a master in intimidation for this because that is a very good feat. Ooh, but got him. Oh, level 10's a fight. Level 10's a fight for some good feats. As a free action once per round, if an ally hits the target of your get 'em directive, you can just give them your charisma modifier as bonus damage. That's so sexy. Every single round. Like, somebody's gonna land a hit every single round. As a free action, you're level 10. That could be just 5 extra damage a round. Somebody happens to get a critical hit. Cool. Take my charisma modifier. That also gets doubled. Ooh, between got 'em and cut 'em deep, I don't know. What else you got level 10? Smooth diversions. Okay, smooth diversions is okay. If you succeed at creating a diversion which makes you hidden, you can either step or sneak as a free action. Additionally, creatures are only aware that you were tricking them if you crit fail, not a normal fail. That's fine. That's a pretty good upgrade. If you're rolling deception, you might as well go with this. I like that a lot. Create a diversion is a hyper underutilized skill action in the Pathfinder Starfinder system. If you are trying to figure out how to get people off guard for your ranged rogue, create a diversion. Tag team is pretty good. If one of your allies critically strikes the target of get 'em, you can attack them as a reaction. This also works if they critically fail a saving throw against your allies' spells. That's pretty cool. Though it's only reflex saves for some reasons. I wonder why that is. Oh, probably because this is mainly used for area fire, which is because it says reflex save against your ally's attack or spell, so it's probably for the weapons that call for a reflex save instead of an attack roll. Secondary directive, phenomenal action economy. If your last activity was a 2-action directive, then you make a strike against a creature, and if it hits, they become affected by a 1-action get 'em. Fantastic. Situational awareness is super cool because, again, it's what I want to see more of out of Paizo. I'm so happy to be seeing this lately. It's an upgrade to a universal action. The ready action is something that doesn't get used often enough because it's not great economy. You spend 2 actions readying a single action. However, with situational awareness, you spend 2 actions to ready a directive with a trigger. And when you use that ready directive, you can use the 2-action lead by example version. That's great. It comes with everything that lead by example comes with, all on a reaction. Phenomenal. Okay, that'll show them is insane. At level 12, it's an upgrade to watch out. Whenever the first time each round you use your reaction to give your ally +2 to their armor class against a creature attacking them, you get to make a ranged strike against that creature. It doesn't have to be ranged, it can be melee. If you're up in their grill and they shoot your Witch Warper, you can say, dodge, pung. And if you hit them, they're suppressed until the start of your next turn. -1 to attack rolls and -10 movement speed. This is insane. That is 2 reactions for the price of 1. Wait a second, it doesn't even have to have the watch out reaction matter. It doesn't matter if it turns the miss into a critical fail or a crit into a success. Just by using it, you have an automatic reactive strike every single round. That's insane. Unstoppable directives is pretty good. Whenever you use a directive that grants temporary hit points, you can increase them by your level. It's pretty good for the brace yourselves one. And the big benefit, if you ever use a directive that doesn't grant temporary hit points, you can grant one ally affected by that directive temp hit points equal to half your level. It's not a lot, but 6 free hit points to just give away every single turn because you're using directives anyway? Why not? And these temporary hit points last a minute. There's no immunity to them, so you can keep reapplying them. And remember, there's no limit on the directives you can use per turn. If you use a 2-action directive followed by a 1-action directive, you can give 2 different people temporary hit points. That's phenomenal. Down to the Wire is pretty cool at level 14. If the last action on your turn is a 1-action directive, by spending your reaction, you can use the 2-action version instead. This just gives you 4 potential actions. And unlike secondary directive back at level 12, your first 2 actions don't even need to be directives. You can stride, you can strike, and then you can 1-action directive by spending a reaction, turning that into a 2-action directive. It's sort of trading your reaction for a 4th action on your turn, but unlike Quickened, that 4th action can be used for a directive, which is great. Master Plan gives you 5 extra hero points per session. Let me explain. During daily preparations, you can review stratagems with up to 5 allies, and by spending a reaction, any ally you reviewed a stratagem with can roll twice and take the better result on either an attack roll or a skill check, once per ally per day. The only thing that makes this weaker than a hero point is, again, it has to be done before the roll. You are giving them advantage, not giving them a reroll. There is a pretty big difference. This is insane. This is actually crazy. You set your allies up for your one big wham bam thank you ma'am attack on the BBEG. You make sure they're getting advantage on that attack roll, which is very rare in Pathfinder 2e outside of hero points. So that's crazy good. And Ready to Roll is just pretty good. As a free action, when you roll initiative, issue a 1-action directive. I'm sure there's some really good combos for this that I'm just not thinking of right now. Probably the movement-based ones, or even just the bracing themselves. Oh, that's a weird one. You can do it for 1 action. If your last action was a 1-action directive, you choose an ally within 60 feet to gain the lead by example benefits instead of you. And if it matters, they use your charisma modifier. So if you use the 1-action get 'em, then what? Then the ally immediately strikes the target of get 'em, gaining a bonus to damage equal to your charisma modifier. That's insane. That's crazy, and it's a free action, not even a reaction, and because it's not on their turn, they don't worry about multiple attack penalty. Wait, that's insane. You can strike 1-action get 'em, and then you can do it where your ally gets to attack full bonus. That's crazy. I love this. I'm gonna say something bold. I'm gonna say something real bold right now. I'd have to play this in practice. I'd have to see this in practice. I firmly believe this might be my favorite class in all of Pathfinder Starfinder. This is my first time reading it, live here on video with you. This might be my favorite class I've ever read. It's so cool. Level 16 Effortless Influencer is good, but I don't know if it's level 16 good. You have to have taken Influence, which is the one that lets you re-roll a Diplomacy, Intimidation, or Deception check once per day. You can now re-roll them 3 times per day. Very, very good. And if you succeed on a check with that skill, even if you didn't use Influence, all allies within 60 feet get a +1 status bonus to that skill. This lasts for 1 minute, and it actually becomes a +2 if you critically succeed. The nice part about this is that it does apply to all of those social checks, not just the ones you used Influence on. So it's good. It's a really, really good passive. Compared to everything else we've seen from the Envoy, I don't know if it's that good, but I guess if you've got people and you're doing a lot of political subterfuge and you can't let the cryogenically thawed barbarian make a mess of the peace treaty meeting with the Pact Worlds, I guess giving them a bonus to diplomacy after your Effortless Influencer procs is a decent idea. Extend Directive, by comparison, is insanely good. As a free action, if you used a 2-action directive last turn, you give the 1-action benefit of that directive again. This is just a free action. Every single turn, you're just getting a bonus directive. Combine this with the one that gives free temporary hit points. You can use and juggle so many directives every single turn. This is amazing. But then there's also Get Them, which is, I mean, I guess at that point it's just Courageous Anthem. Get Them, you can target any number of creatures to give all your allies the +1 status bonus to attack rolls against, and you still only strike one target with the 2-action version, though this does give everybody the +1 bonus to damage rolls on all of the targets, so it's pretty good. Fast Synergy is great, though requires some specific party coordination. All allies within 100 feet of you, when they start their turn, get an additional reaction, which is insane, but that reaction can only be spent following Envoy directives. Still great, you're level 18, you're issuing like 3 directives per turn. This is pretty damn useful for everybody, especially for classes that want to save their reactions for something in their build, so being able to follow your directives without sacrificing their kit, fantastic. Improvised Legend is just an upgrade. You can now use Improvised Mastery once per hour instead of just twice per day. Gross, love it. Don't you just want to be able to be legendary in anything you choose once per hour? And level 20, Endlessly Adaptive. This was fine. You get 2 additional skill feats, meaning you get 5 skill feats you can completely swap out every single daily preparation, and at any time by spending 10 minutes, you can reselect all 5 of them. However, if they have a limited number of use, you can't trade them out if you've already spent that use. For level 20, I don't know. Don't get me wrong, it's one of those weird cases of, this is an insane ability, but you're also level 20, so it matters a whole lot less. And finally, True Leader. As a free action, every single turn, you can issue a 1-action directive. Interestingly, this does not count toward your total number of directives issued this turn. I'm sure there's a reason they added that, and there's a feat I forgot that directly engages with your number of used directives. That's just a very fascinating piece of text to add to it. Additionally, keep in mind, it's not quickened to use a 1-action directive. Almost every other class with a unique ability, their level 20 is you are quickened 1, but the extra action can only be spent on blank. And you know why? It's because they didn't want to give you the ability to use 2 active directives I can't talk anymore. I've said directive and action way too much. This class is awesome. The Envoy is my favorite class I've ever read on paper. Maybe it doesn't feel as good in combat. Maybe in practice it's clunky and requires a lot of discussion and strategy with the table that some people may not be into. But you know who is into it? Me. Holy. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about the Envoy, and what do you think of Starfinder 2e so far, y'all? This is my first actual video covering Starfinder content, and I really hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. Y'all, it has been so cool to sit down and make, an 80-minute long video again. It's been so long since I've made one of these. I forgot how fun they are. I forgot how much I enjoy just talking about this. I have rediscovered a lot of my love for YouTube. It still wanes and waxes occasionally, but that's just a job, It's a job. And I couldn't be happier that this is mine. I appreciate y'all so freaking much. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon for a very special video this Thursday. If you know nothing about the Starfinder universe, that's one you won't want to miss. Take it easy, everybody. And until next time, no nat ones, but in space.